So I think I'm live now on both Instagram and YouTube. So hello, good to be back, and thank you for joining me. And if you're celebrating Easter today, I hope you have a happy Easter, or you've had a happy Easter. And I hope that if you're not celebrating Easter, then I hope you're having a nice weekend. So it's good to be back with you all, and yes, today I wanted to talk about Duolingo, and it's something actually I was asked a question on Twitter. What was my final verdict of Duolingo? And I thought, actually, that's a really good thing to talk about for a live. So I decided that this would be the idea for the live today, to talk about it in a bit more detail, but also to engage with you and to see what you think of this. Now, remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you like it. If you don't like it, obviously you don't need to. But if you do, then please give me a like. That just helps me to see that you're enjoying it, and also that take that as a kind of a nice thing to give back to me, if you will, so that I can see that you enjoy these videos, these lives. And yeah, remember to subscribe if you haven't done already. On YouTube, I have more people following than actually have likes. So yeah, if you do feel that in the next few minutes you want to give a like, please do give a like. And so today I wanted to talk about the whole Duolingo experience. So some of you may have remembered that I used Duolingo for Swahili a few months ago, and I talked a little bit about my experience of Duolingo on that during a couple of lives as well. My experience of how it was, how I found it. And there's one thing that I'm going to say in the very beginning that I sort of want to make very clear, and that is that anything that promotes language learning, I don't necessarily find bad in its entirety. And so any way we can get people interested in learning languages and popularizing learning languages, I think generally is a positive thing. So I wouldn't badmouth Duolingo in any way for that reason. It's done many good things for languages like Scottish Gaelic, for example. And as many of you may know, I'm very much into the whole idea of supporting indigenous languages, vulnerable languages that are in danger from the threat. I am definitely in favor of supporting those communities as much as possible. And so for that, I am absolutely grateful for the existence of an application like Duolingo, where those languages appear and popularize and bring the language into the news as shows its popularity, show that people are learning it and things like that. And I've actually met people who have used it and then gone on to do formal courses and study more. So clearly there's something there. I think actually one of the questions, one of the comments I got on Instagram was from Tiff, and Tiffany said to me that actually it's good for, it depends, but it's good for a beginner, and if you're new to language learning. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's an application like Duolingo. If you don't know the language learning process, you're not familiar with it, if you've never really tried or been on any of the courses for languages, and of course that's your first experience of it. And so in a way, that's the positivity that I see in an app like that. I think what I want to dig a bit deeper on, though, is how it is for people who want to seriously learn languages. And this is where I think I diverge a little bit from what I think of the app for people who generally want to learn a bit of the language. The reason I diverge from that is that I generally, I generally have difficulty in seeing gamification as the more important thing over the learning process. And I think whilst it can encourage people to learn, my time on the Duolingo app indicated to me that some things become sadly more important than the actual learning of the language itself. So the league tables, getting points, getting streaks. And what would happen is if you don't have a paid for version that costs money, or you don't pay to repair, or streaks and things like that, then basically there's almost like a social pressure to conform to keeping your streak. This is all used in sort of the marketing materials, the emails, the the things that Duolingo uses to try and keep you going and keep you moving forward in your learning. I don't know how much that content is actually focused on the learning of the language, but more on the use of the app. And I get why it's a business, it's a company, they want the people to use the app. However, where I see kind of a bit of a murky line there is I found a lot of people were finding tricks and hacks for how to keep your streak and how to move up the league tables. So I believe that what I saw, and I actually felt this pull myself, is you'd be put in the bottom ranks of the league table. Some people would be using the league tables or getting points in a way that, let's be honest, would feel like, wow, how on earth are you achieving these points, right, on this app? And some of it could only be that you were unnecessarily revising and going over things that were easy for you to win points. Sometimes it could be that if you had a difficult week or whatever on Duolingo, and I'm very much a holistic approach person to language learning, I think that if you have a difficult week or a difficult month even, that there are adequate, there are there are good ways and steps that you can take that may not include language learning on a daily basis to make sure that you as a whole can move forward in a positive way. So sometimes my advice is actually to not do certain things that would seem almost not not kind of the thing that you do to move forward with your language learning. So taking a break from language learning, for example, sometimes can be the right thing to do to move forward in a more positive way in the longer term. And if you do this, like for mental health reasons, for reasons of things going on at home, for reasons of illness, for reasons of many things, and I think the pressure to continue on moving forward for a streak, for example, or to stay in a certain league, I think actually goes against the need as a human being to make sure that we look after our well-being and move forward with language learning, but with a long-term view and not with a short-term view. And this is where I have a difficulty with an app like Duolingo. And it's also a reason why I quite recently advised somebody to stop their streak on a Duolingo. Somebody I've been working with we were talking about this in quite an open way, and that person agreed. Actually, it felt more like a pressure, and it felt more negative, and it didn't feel like it was actually moving forwards with anything. And my advice was, break the streak on Duolingo. Stop the 1 year. I mean, they've been doing this for 1 year and had like a 360 cents. So this wasn't a small thing for them. I said, if you feel comfortable, if it's not, I consider what we're talking about, obviously, and you make your decision. But I said, to release yourself from that pressure, the easiest way to go about doing that is for you to take ownership of releasing yourself from that streak and bucking the trend. And this is, I've done exactly the same thing myself. I mean, when I was studying Swahili, I got to kind of this 100-day thing, and you keep getting these award things that are going to show you, I've done 100 days and this golden owl and all this nonsense. And I stopped it, deliberately stopped it. And I paid for a year subscription. I stopped the subscription as well. And when I started feeling the negative impact of this, I stopped the subscription, and I deliberately stopped the streak. And it actually took a few days to stop the streak. It was at a time when they just released Haitian Creole, and I felt I wanted to go and play with Haitian Creole, and I did for a little bit. But and I'm not going to rule out using Duolingo at all. But what I find is it sucks you into this vortex that isn't necessarily always a healthy relationship with the learning process. For me, the learning process definitely has to be more about the intellectual nourishment from the language learning itself, and about the what you gain from it. It's not, I mean, whether I get a little thing for a gold owl or whatever for something, it for me doesn't actually change or make any difference to me, my learning, or anything in the long run. I can't stick that on my CV, and I can't put that on LinkedIn. It's just, yeah. If I were to say it in an interview, it would sound crazy. So I don't particularly want to subscribe to that myself. And I know possibly saying all of this might sound like I'm kind of going against the idea of the whole Duolingo thing. And I think, kind of, if you're serious about language learning, it kind of is a little bit. I still see the whole thing. I still see Duolingo as a whole, and the good it does, and the pull towards this kind of void. So I'm, for my personal growth in language learning, and the thoughts I had during the whole experience with Swahili, with having to learn very strange, unusual, and quite useless vocabulary, to prioritize that vocabulary to get through to the next stage, for example, which you have to do on Duolingo. You have to pass certain levels and get through it, and you have to get it right, and you'll test it on it again and again and again and again and again. I had a problem with that as well, insofar as when you're starting out in language and you're trying to learn to communicate, the things you communicate most and the things that you say most often are the things that are most relevant to life. And as learners, we need to learn what those relevant things are. And an app like Duolingo, unfortunately, force feeds us vocabulary that isn't useful, that isn't conducive to our own repetition of the language for it to be entrenched in our minds. And it almost has the opposite effect, because if you don't remember that vocabulary that, let's be honest, is absolutely bizarre and boring to learn, you almost feel divorced from the learning process. You feel some sort of negative emotions coming in when you sit down and do it, because you don't want to do it. And then if you don't do it, you get this negative reinforcement from the app itself that you have failed to keep a streak, that you've dropped down to a lower level on the league tables, And the people who are performing well in a lot of the league tables are usually doing a couple of things. One, doing a very, very quick early morning spate on Duolingo where they play the app for maybe one round. They then get the double points potion thing that you get on the app. They save it till the evening in Bank-it. Then they may go on to the repetition areas of the app where you can repeat things that you've done many, many times, which are super easy to just clock up lots of points. And then what they'll do is you can even get certain areas ready to the point where you have almost finished it, so that when basically you can get extra double points and things when you finish a certain area of the tree, one of the levels within the tree. And then what I think they do is they do things like that are extremely repetitive, not really useful in learning the language, but hammer things that are easy to do to get points to stay high at the table. And somebody who arrives who genuinely wants to learn and is not that interested in beating or being in the Duolingo race for being, the best in the league, or the one who is kind of keeping a streak. And what happens is those people stay, and the person that's actually doing it regularly, but a little by little, they get pushed down the leagues and they get that negative reinforcement over and over and over again. And my question would be, how does that impact them? And I can imagine, well, I've heard firsthand as well from other people, but I can well imagine that that's on quite a larger scale a problem in language learning. So my overall verdict of Duolingo is it's handy to have resources that can start you on languages where there are very few resources. Generally, I wouldn't necessarily advise anyone who wants to seriously learn a language to use Duolingo. It wouldn't be something that I would naturally promote as a language learning tool. It wouldn't be something that I could get behind in its current format as a serious language learning app that I think has a positive result for the majority of people. I think that a lot needs to change with how people on the app use it to keep streaks, to keep up in league tables and things like that, for the gamification to become less important than the actual learnings. It's free, yes. And just seeing a comment, it's free. So I personally, for someone serious learning language, I don't necessarily, wouldn't recommend it necessarily. That said, not like I said in the preface at the very beginning of this, when I spoke about it, I will never speak out totally against an app like Duolingo, just because one reason it's free, two, it's doing something positive on a wider scale on other things, particularly with Indigenous languages, and making language learning something that many people talk about and think about who are not normally in that space. And so if someone ever tells me they're using Duolingo, I will talk to them in a very normal way. I will never say to you, don't use it at all. I will never say to you, oh, you should do something else instead. If you're happy using it, then and you find it works for you and you're happy with the goals that you have on it, then I'm happy that you're doing something positive. So I'm never ever going to say, if you're using it, stop using it, unless you ask me for a full evaluation of your learning process. And there are people who work with me or have worked with me who have continued using Duolingo, and that's absolutely fine. For the one person I mentioned during this live, it wasn't having that effect. It was actually having a negative effect. And so that was the right piece of advice I thought that I could give to stop using it, to consider not using it anyway, and to getting rid of the pressure of the streaks and whatever else. So there's my very long evaluation and verdict on Duolingo. As I say, it's not an out-and-out negative appraisal of the app. There are many things that I appreciate about it. I would definitely hope that there could be some work done to really highlight the positives more and to reduce the negatives. And I think that is within the grasp of Duolingo to do. I think there can be an evaluation. I'm not sure how much time they spend looking at these things, but I think that they can manage that better. And I hope in the future they do. One thing that, where I appreciated, let's say Speakly, because I did use Speakly, right, at one point for Estonian, is the messages on Speakly were way more positive. Like even when you got things wrong, there was a positive spin on things, and so it didn't reinforce a negative situation. And I thought some people might think that sounds like semantics, and as a Brit, generally speaking, people like quite straightforward talk about this kind of thing. But I thought they got the tone right on Speakly for this. I don't think they get the tone right on Duolingo with this. I think it feels a little bit manipulative in terms of tone of voice and the emails and the crying owl and all that kind of nonsense. I find it just a little bit too much. Of course, everyone has the right to feel different ways about all of these things, and I'm absolutely happy to hear different opinions on it. I was asked my opinion on my final verdict, and I thought I would give you an honest version of my thoughts, and I hope you appreciate it. And if it helps you, if you're kind of in this dilemma with it, that it helps you to maybe see where you want to go with it, what you want to do with it. If it means that, if you are feeling that pressure, breaking a streak deliberately and taking power over it is actually quite an empowering thing. And there's nothing wrong with using it again for something else. But there we go. So now, as usual, I'm going to go to the comments and I'm going to do my best to go from the beginning, catch up on them. I'll start on Instagram today because I think I started last time on YouTube. So I will scroll up to the top. If you are commenting, you're seeing this live and wondering what on earth's going on, I start from the beginning. I try and catch the comments and the questions, and then I will go back to YouTube and I will look on the YouTube comments and I'll do the same thing. So please do put questions in if you have questions or thoughts. I'm very happy. You like my sense of humor. Yeah, well, you can blame the island in the rain for that. Unfortunately, the UK is an extremely depressing place. We have to develop a sense of humor. Okay. Je vais justement utiliser Duolingo pour apprendre les bases d'anglais. Rosetta Stone aussi. Rosetta Stone, non. Non, ça c'est en fait, c'est comme tu veux, mais à mon avis, Rosetta Stone, c'est pas peine, quoi. Enfin, non, je ferai pas. Je suis trop pas. Mais Duolingo, si tu veux, tu peux utiliser, hein, tu peux voir comment ça va avec Duolingo, quoi. Mais il y a même des cours des autres cours aussi, tu peux l'utiliser, hein, pour apprendre l'anglais. L'anglais partout. Okay. Okay, good point. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I can see some of you here saying that you agreed with the points I was saying, which is nice. In languages that have stories, Spanish, French, and Portuguese, people keep redoing the stories to gain XP points. There we go. So I haven't used it for languages with stories before, but it's interesting to hear that, or to read that you see the same problem with the stories too. Yeah, people do. There are cheats and hacks to get points, and this is where I have a kind of a problem with it. I think it's pointless. Здравствуйте. Что это? Вы преподаваете, как это, я не правильный языков, как? Я не могу читать, что это? Э, извините, потому что, ну, это очень маленький здесь, и поэтому это очень, трудно, читать. А, но я не вижу, как это. Что если ты можешь там, писать еще один раз, пожалуйста. Ну как? I think there's a word missing or something in that comment. I couldn't read it properly. It didn't make sense. I couldn't get the meaning. There are some days when I literally do the lesson just to keep my streak going. Yeah, I heard that so many times. And do you resent it? This is the question, right? If you do it to keep your streak going, do you resent the learning process, the learning that you're not doing? If you have little time and you want to learn the language, is it not better to actually sit down with something that will teach you something new rather than to just do something on Duolingo that's going to just keep your streak going? Are you then not replacing language learning with a game? And this is the kind of where the problem occurs, right? I think this is what happens is we end up replacing the thing that we say we're going to do it for with the game of it, which is where I say gamification becomes the more important thing over language learning, which for me makes no sense anymore, and I think is an unhealthy relationship in the process. And if you've got a little bit of time, I'd much prefer seeing people study a language. Look, there are languages where it would be very difficult to learn them without an app like Duolingo. So, for example, Haitian Creole, really, really good that we've got Haitian Creole in there. Gaelic, there is a really good Learn Gaelic website now. So you can use that if you want, learngaelic.scot. Irish, for example, you could pay for a 3-month, if you want to do it, like go through a course in Irish, much better to use rangana.ie to learn Irish and pay for a 3-month subscription and do a bit every day. Much better to learn Irish on there than on Duolingo, for sure, no question. For languages that have a lot more materials, I mean, you are just overwhelmed with the amount of information. And maybe that's why people do many of the languages on Duolingo, because it's just an easy thing on your app or on the go. You can just click it and you're off, right? Maybe that's why. But I think always be cautious when the game becomes more important than the actual learning, particularly if you only have a limited amount of time. Because you're not actually learning anything anymore. You're just playing with an app. And it can feel like it's the right thing to do. It can feel like, yeah, but I think if you dig deeper, you're going to feel that you're not really moving forward with anything of any meaning. Spent so much little time on getting the street. Yeah, exactly. All the gems, yeah. All one gems anyway. Yeah. Gems. That's kind of, they deal with gems. I still don't really bother with gems. I get all these gems everywhere, and it's like, okay, great. Okay. Oh, my word, it's so difficult to read today on. I think the thing is it's white text, and when I look on Instagram, it blends in with my beard, so it's really hard to read the writing sometimes. What you're talking was definitely the thing was seeking. Take advice from somebody. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the thing, right? So taking advice is, I mean, I do. this is why I sort of do these, have the Patreon thing now, and I have the groups that I run where we talk about language learning and we talk about what we're doing. And you're more than welcome to join. I mean, look, I'm always going to do these free talks about language learning and answer questions. I enjoy doing them. I'm also happy if anybody wants to join those things and get more specific advice, then you're very, very welcome to do that, and I'll make time for you for this purpose. This is, for me, I want to see as many people as possible learn how to learn and feel comfortable with what they're doing and moving forward and actually succeeding in language learning. Look, the language learning market, and I think this is the thing, right? The language learning market, it's a market where people try and sell you lots and lots of things. There are lots of products out there. There are an awful lot of things you can buy. What they do is they will sell to the widest audience possible, and which is normal. It's business, right? It's a business. They have a good intention to teach you something. It's not that they're trying to sell you something that doesn't necessarily work, but it's a business as well. And for the most part, the vast majority of people will go and they'll buy a product, they'll buy a course, they'll buy a book, they'll buy an inside app purchase, whatever it is, they'll buy it. But what they do is that feeds this idea of, oh, I'm doing something positive, and then won't necessarily use it, or they'll use it a few times and then not use it again. My goal, really, when I work with people, is to build sustainability for the longer period, and I want to see people succeed in language learning, and that's why I do these lives. That's why I answer questions. That's why I go to events and talk, and that's why I do these groups as well, these language learning therapy sessions that I hold, and I do these for that reason. I want people to succeed. And it's an individual thing. Some people need like a trainer at the gym. I guess you need to have someone to spar off, to answer questions, to ask your very particular individual needs, and it's important sometimes. Look, we do it for everything else in life, and for learning, taking exams, people have someone to train with to take exams. People have someone to train with to pass certain things or to do certain things in life. It's completely fine to do that, but sometimes a package thing, a thing that just comes out of one book, isn't enough for every single individual, and that's kind of what I recognize. Okay. Let me see. Okay. I'm glad you realized about Duolingo and breaking the streak. I just broke my 70. Congratulations on breaking a 70-day streak, and did not feel happy about that. But I don't want to feel pressured about yeah, exactly. So congratulations on that. I'm sorry you didn't do it on your own on purpose. If you do it purposefully, you feel more empowered. But I'm glad you've seen that there's something good about breaking a streak. Yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying it at your own pace as well. That's good to know. Thank you for sharing. How I'm fine, thank you. I'm doing well, thank you very much. Do you recommend Speakly? Well, it worked well for me for Estonian. So Speakly, what it does, particularly in the beginning stages where I got to with Estonian, when I was wanting to speak, it taught me the most common things. I could start seeing patterns, and it works pretty well. People who have used it and told me that they used it because they saw me using it and getting results with it, also said that they found it did help. Does it work amazingly well for everyone? It depends how you use it. It depends if you take that Speakly's advice. It depends on many things. Yeah, I mean, as I say, for Estonian, it worked well. I haven't used it for the other languages, but for Estonian, I mean, after using it, I spoke Estonian on Estonian TV. I set the interview up in Estonian. I did everything through Estonian. just from what I did on the app, and I didn't use any other materials. So I can't really complain about Speakly for that reason. I think it's been pretty good for that. It got me to where I wanted to go. If you're interested in it, when I did it, they reached out and gave me some discount codes. If you want to use them, I don't get anything from those discount codes. I'm not endorsed by them or paid by them to use those codes. I don't get anything from those codes, but they give you 40% discount if you want to buy it after trying it. You're very welcome to go to my Estonian videos and see. I don't link all of that stuff on every single video, but on the Estonian videos I put them on every single one, so that anyone wanting to try it out and to pay for the full product can, and get a 40% discount. So feel free if you want to try it. But yeah, I mean, I say you can try it for free for a while and see what you think. You don't need to even see if you like it. Despite the gamification, I love the social side of Duolingo. Yeah, this is actually, I'm glad that you brought that up. The ability to make friends and stuff like that, and then share achievements and that. So there is a really cool thing about so I'm going to separate the app from the Duolingo community. So the Duolingo community, I think, is quite a positive thing, generally speaking. There are great meetups. There are people that learn languages through or partly through Duolingo, that meet up and do language exchanges, do language learning groups, do study sessions together. That side I absolutely love, and I'm very much for finding your community. So I think that is, you're absolutely right, and thank you so much for reminding me to mention that, because yeah, that should have had more prominence. I think there is a lot of really good stuff that comes out of it community wise. Absolutely. Yep, some groups. Okay. Yep. I like that you all join in here and you help me to make sure that I get things that maybe sometimes I didn't think about or didn't mention. And yeah, it's absolutely true. The communities on Duolingo, actually, I've heard some really nice things about, uh, and people reached out to me actually on different applications, like on Twitter and stuff, to say, "Oh, I saw you're on this and you're doing that," and it is quite nice. It is quite nice feeling. I do enjoy that myself. So yes, I agree with you. Okay, I've been through Instagram. Now I'm on to YouTube, and I'm going to look through the questions now from the top again. Looking forward to this. To be honest, I have a love-hate relationship with Duolingo. Alex, yes. That's kind of me. I mean, I do have a very mixed relationship with Duolingo, and I think that's come through hopefully with this. That I'm not 100% negative about it, but I try to be realistic. Remember, if you haven't yet liked the video, please do like the video. I have more people watching still on YouTube than I have likes. And please remember to like on Instagram, follow if you're not following, and do like. It helps to see that I know you're there and you are enjoying it and you appreciate the video. That's the best way to show me actually your support, is to do that. And all of a sudden, 6 people dropped out of the live on YouTube. So there we go. Now we're okay. So maybe people didn't like me asking for likes. That's so funny. I feel really weird asking for likes on a social media app, but it is a really good way to show me and to show the app that if you want to have it pushed through, it helps the algorithm. So there is a real reason for doing that. It's not me just doing it because I feel real vanity. Gamification of Instagram and YouTube. Yeah, I mean, it's not like you really make much money or anything from that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of it just helps. I mean, it's kind of yeah. Anyway, so okay. For example, I've been trying for Turkish, Russian on Duolingo. It's quite fun. Yeah, it can be fun. But I find English Duolingo to be quite unhelpful, since I find I spend too much time focusing on the English translation of the sentence instead of my target language. Absolutely, yeah. I hope what I said makes sense. It does make sense, Alex. Thank you. And perhaps others can chip in. I'm sure they will or have. Oh, nice questions, Tiffany. Good to see you. Okay, happy Easter. Paști fericit. Thank you very much. Mulțumesc foarte mult. Istaru, istaru no, detto, detto go, detto go, detto gozaimasu. Oh, okay. Arigato gozaimasu. Flavio, nice. Thank you very much. I hope I got that right. Istaro. Okay. And it's been a long time since I've read Japanese. My word. And you know, when I read the word for day as well, I keep reading it in Chinese, which is terrible. This was my problem when I was whenever I tried to learn Japanese, I kept reading the kanji in Chinese in my head, and so I kept forgetting the word in Japanese. Okay. Yeah, Richard, good to see you too, Rasmus. I love Duolingo, but I'm sorry to say that they still have some silly sentences, and on their English certificates are accepted. And many of and on their English certificates are accepted in many universities. Very interesting. I had no idea. It's stuck. I don't know. In my sense, there are no perfect methods, no simple path to fluency. They are just tools. You need to use several tools, but you have to. Okay, but you can build a house just with a hammer. You need all the tools. Yep, Tim, I agree that there's no one method. And as I say, when I see Duolingo working for people, for individuals, I would never dissuade somebody who's happy with it to stop using it. Absolutely, no question at all. We're all very different. We all react to different things. We all have different needs, different speeds, different things that we respond to, and we're packaged just differently. Every individual is different. So I agree with you that you need all tools in the kit to help build the house. Absolutely. Really nice analogy, by the way. I like that a lot. I've certainly done easy lessons just to keep my streak going. Yeah, Tiff, yeah, absolutely. I think Duolingo is useful as long as you're not in it to gain. I treat it more as a lesson. I speak and write. Yep, fantastic. I think that's the good thing, isn't it? Right? It's if you're there and you know why you're there and you're happy, even if you look, you can like the game thing, right, and still learn something. But you have to be happy with it. And if you're happy, even if you're treading water in language learning for a long time, and you're happy, as long as you're happy, you're doing something positive. I'm never going to criticize you and think you're silly for doing that. I think that's no reason. People that asked me what I thought, so I wanted to share my honest opinion. But at the same time, absolutely, there's no way that I would ever dissuade anyone from using it. For me, it's like I like it, but I do feel sometimes like the grades, knowledge at school that lead to students to cheat to approve, to pass the exam. Yeah, absolutely. It can feel like that sometimes. Yeah. I use Duolingo for Ukrainian because it's quick, easy, and to satisfy my curiosity for the language. If I want to learn a language in more depth, I will find the materials online. Fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely. Sounds like you're using it for the right reasons there. Duolingo should be a good thing to get confidence in language learning, but slowly pull away from it to use other resources. Yeah, if that's what works for you, and your goal is to go a lot deeper into the language, I think that the whole game thing needs to become the language learning, discovering how words work, grammar works, discovering how to use language and manipulate the language. This is where I think the true game, the true fun and adventure of language learning really takes place. The other thing I don't like is the leagues. Boost and Memrise also have these things, but it's different. You compete with people learning the same language. Yeah. I'm not a huge. I mean, look, it appeals to people. It's natural. It appeals to people, but it doesn't promote a fair assessment of the competition. Exactly, the point is to learn the language. You might not maintain the streak, but you might be reading a book or going to a course. I ignore the streaks and points and skip all that stuff. Great on you. I'm really glad you're able to do that. It's good. That's really positive. There are a lot of useless phrases on Duolingo. Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of to be fair to Duolingo, there are lots of useless phrases sometimes in other courses too. But Duolingo does have a monopoly on really absurd phrases, I think. You can contact the team and get your streaks back if you were sick. I had a natural disaster or something. Oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that, Svetlana. That's interesting. Björn spise äpplen. Yeah, yeah, there we go. The bear's eating the apple. That's cool. You're going to say that never. You should see an old video of Lang Focus on Duolingo. It's scary. Really? Oh, I need to maybe look at that later. Yep. I'll have a look and see if I can find that. Give Richard a like, please. It helps him out. Yeah, thank you very much for mentioning that, John. Give Richard a like, please. It helps him out. He's good enough to come here every Sunday and help us out. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that, John. Thank you. That's really kind. Yeah, this has been like, I mean, I really, don't get me wrong, I love coming to talk to you every week, and I would do it even if you didn't like my videos. I think just the amount of support I get from you all every week, I just really enjoy it. So, and I like your questions, and I like your thoughts, and I like your feedback, and so yeah, I'd come back anyway. But yeah, it does really help. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. What drives me crazy about Duolingo is how insane the sentences are. Nobody would use those sentences. Right? Yeah, there are a lot of sentences that are very, very strange. I absolutely agree with you on that. Like it, John. Yeah, thank you very much, Svetlana, for agreeing. I really appreciate it. The Spanish course in its German version was almost useless. It taught me bebe, third person singular, again and again, but e.g. never oh, bebe. I was writing bebe, sorry, bebe, but never bebéis or bebemos. Wow, really? That's really interesting. Yeah, it's free. I think I saw that one before, didn't I? And I mentioned that as I was when I was actually speaking. That's true. Interesting, Mister. I wonder if there are any who the volunteers were. Yeah, the volunteers. I mean, I know people who put together courses for this. So my friend Chuck Smith worked on the Esperanto course, and the Esperanto course is one of the courses actually that I think works really well on Duolingo, if I'm honest. And it's not just because Chuck's my friend. It works well because I've seen people go through the entire course, then come to an event and speak Esperanto. And I have met somebody who said they used Duolingo for Welsh and spoke to me in Welsh. And I was really impressed. They could actually put together sentences in Welsh. It was actually really good. So this is why I say I'm never completely against everything. And Duolingo has a lot of languages, and the languages are going to be different. So thank you for mentioning the volunteers. People have put some really hard work into putting the stuff together on Duolingo, and I'm very grateful to them for doing that. And I really do appreciate it, because we need more materials out there. I will possibly go back to Duolingo at some stage to study more of the indigenous or endangered languages. I possibly will. I could, for example, doing Indonesia in my native language and get thousands of points, but I don't do that. Yeah, you could do that. For your native language, you could potentially, but yeah, it would be silly, right? Yeah. I like it for its comparative linguistics and studying languages from other languages. Yeah, that's also a good point. Richard, got a question. How did you learn vocabulary, especially in German? You write down the new vocabulary along with examples, or simply read it. I could be a bit, okay. I could be a bit more efficient, but tend to forget vocab. Really good question. Okay. Learning vocabulary takes me a lot of time. Depends on the language, what I do. So you asked me specifically for German. Now, with German and a couple of languages where I've studied very intensively, that means I made it my full-time job. I basically did it for up to 8 hours a day. German I did for 8 hours a day for a while, for like a few months, and I was copying down and reading and learning around about 130, 135 words a day. Now, did I remember every single one? No. What I did was very simple. I mean, this was before like mobile phones that we know now with smartphones and stuff. It was before applications that you could test spaced repetition software. Quite simply, I would write down on paper, copy out from the school syllabus in the UK, the types of vocabulary that you needed to pass the school exams in the UK. I would write down all the words with the gender and the grammatical gender, and with the plural form for German, because it's important. And I would write the English on another side, and I would cover over the English, read through the list, test myself to see I understood it first. What I didn't understand, I kept going through until I understood them all. And then I would test myself on the other side, covering the German, and see which ones I could produce, kind of as you would in an app, I guess, nowadays. Now, one thing that I do is when I know a word's important, I prioritize the words I need to know. The words I need to know are the ones that are important in my life. Things that I like, things that I dislike when it comes to food, things that I'm allergic to. Those things are the most important things in terms of like food vocabulary, for example. Things that I enjoy doing in my free time, the things that I do, or the things that my nearest and dearest do, are the important words that I need to be able to use, because they're the ones I'm going to start talking about first. The other things will come later. And so I don't stress or panic on like vocabulary that's not necessarily needed in the beginning, because I need to get things going. I need to start the motor running. And you need a base core set of words and grammar to do that. And that language is always the language that you mostly use, think about, consider, that it has a real link to your life, because that's what you're most likely to repeat most often. And so that's what I did with German. So I did that every day. I was in Germany, so I was speaking the language on a daily basis, constantly speaking German. In the evenings, in the mornings, at the weekends, I was always using German. I was going to German shops. I was seeing a lot of these words written down everywhere. I was listening to German TV and radio. I could hear German. Just everywhere I went was German. And we didn't, as I say, we didn't have the internet in the way we have it now. The internet existed. There were a few things online, but not many things at all. And so basically, I was in a very German environment. So learning it in that intensively worked. Now, there is a similarity between that and also what I would do in a kind of a more normal environment. Okay, so now with Irish, for example, I recognize I don't get to speak Irish very often, so I need to repeat vocabulary by going back over it, listening to it again, making a conscious effort to think about how I would express certain things, and taking myself out of a comfort zone to put in some details. In the beginning stages, to kind of like an A1, A2 level. I mean, A1 is really picking some real nuts and bolts stuff. A2, you're starting to put it together a bit more, and you're able to maybe form nice sentences, have a bit of a chat with somebody. And so the A2 stage is really where you're starting to focus on, okay, do I know the words that are really important to have a basic vocabulary? You need to, once you've got all that sort of stuff in, then it's a case of building it out. And that can be where people experience this difficulty of getting words in that are maybe not necessary to have a very basic conversation, and you can get away with not saying them, but you have to force yourself out of your comfort zone. The key thing is, though, is this repetition and repetition of things that you're going to use, and making sure you use them. And that's what I found with vocabulary for me has been really important in all of the languages I've studied. Repetition, thinking about it, considering what I'm going to say, using it, and making a point of using language. And then individual words in terms of learning them. I do my best every time to really think about the word, consider what it's made up of, what's involved in the word. Is there an etymological root or a link to another word I know? That for me is really important. If there isn't, does it sound like another word I know that I can make a story about in my head? Where I think, okay, this sounds like this, so therefore I can go to this language, and sometimes I'll do it across languages so that it sticks in the beginning enough for me to use it in a conversation to start that repetition going. And that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. Yeah, terima kasih. Oh, okay, sama-sama. JR, I could say from Spanish and English speakers version is amazing. I am a Portuguese native speaker and C2 in English, but other people may not think that. Yeah, everyone's going to think differently as well. I think it's really important to know that, yeah, everybody has different opinions about the same thing. I think it's great as a tool, but the repertoire for someone at A1, A2 level, but shouldn't be relied on as the only resource. Yeah, I mean, yeah, depends on what you're doing, but yeah, I think it's good to get to know other things as well. Absolutely, where that's possible. I found that some of the more popular languages have a lot of content, at least for a native English speaker, but some of the more obscure have very little. Yeah, that's also absolutely possible, Tiffany. I've not done any of these bigger languages in terms of there are lots of resources, or they're more studied on a global scale than the languages that are less studied on a great global scale. So I can't make that comparison so easily. I'd already studied a lot of those languages before I got to Duolingo, so before Duolingo was even a thing, right? So it would be weird going back and doing it for like Spanish or French or German or something. Duolingo's need for some phrases to be perfect is annoying. Okay, yeah, sometimes that can be frustrating as well. Opinion on Busu and Memorize and Quizlet. Brian, maybe for another time. I feel that I wouldn't be fair to comment on them too much right now, but I will definitely consider that for you for another live. Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I'm happy to sort of go through different apps and review as well. It's all fun, right? I personally like Closemaster more than Duolingo. It's like a perfect medium between Duolingo and Anki for me. I'm doing a test to see how far I can learn. What's that? Brazilian Portuguese with it. So far, 1,000. Okay, 100 word most common. Fantastic. Well done. That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, Closemaster I've used from time to time as well, and yeah, I'm happy to talk about that more as well. I like Memrise for the literal translation provided, so it helps me to see the grammatical basis of the word or phrase. Yeah, that's cool. That's one of the cool things actually about the Assimil books. So the Assimil courses also give you a literal translation so that you can understand where things have come from, like the word order and stuff like that, which I find quite cool. Usually write down every single sentence, even if it's easy for the repetition. Yeah, repetition's sake, very good. I know the audio seems pretty okay too, and I like shadowing the sentences too. Overall, it hits a lot for fantastic. I mean, Closemaster's pretty cool. Absolutely. It's true, Tiffany, for Spanish, French, Japanese have lots of opinions on Duo. The Italian is surprisingly poor. Oh, that's interesting. Let me see. Lacking. Okay. Depressing like the original British The Office. The British are depressing like the original British The Office. Yeah, do you know what, JR? It's funny because I had never watched the American version of The Office, and then I did, and actually I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be. The American version of The Office. The British version of The Office, though, is I like that it's kind of just bleak. Maybe that just appeals to my crazy upbringing in the island in the rain. Absolutely. But yeah, the UK Office is quite a funny one. But yeah, I did enjoy the American one actually. I thought it's quite nice. But it's all very upbeat and it's all kind of happy ending. It's kind of like Hollywood type type thing, right? It's all very feel good. But I like the characters. I thought they were quite good, and I like that they made some changes to fit the US, things that were very US focused, which is good because I think when it's just the same one, it's very difficult. There's a lot of cultural stuff in those types of series. Okay. Also, the people who have lots of points only use Duolingo to learn, uh, but it's better to use more than one resource to learn language. Yeah, possibly. It is also possible, JR, that people who just use it only use Duolingo are getting those points. That's absolutely possible. I take on board that as a, a, a relevant and a valid point. I think, yeah, it could be. I'm theorizing because of some of the talks I've heard and people I've communicated with. But yeah, it could be that they're just generally learning. There are definitely going to be people like that. There are definitely other people who are definitely using it and just kind of finding ways around it to make get all those XP points. Have you got another advice about how to overcome German grammar? Oh my word, Chavarro. Let me think. Well, context is king when it comes to grammar and learning to use language. Using it as you would want to in a very natural way is important. So, I mean, this is where I think comprehensible input is the way to go when it comes to grammar and getting that repetition through that, and then also focusing on the things that you likely want to say helps you to get the grammar in a more natural way. But yeah, I'm probably towards the end of my life now, and maybe can't give you a full answer to that right now here, but hopefully in the future I will be able to. Um, the only good part of Duolingo are the levels. You should stop once you hit level 25 in the language on Duolingo. Oh wow, that's interesting for you to say that, JR. Yeah, I'd be interested to know more of your thoughts on that. I prefer to learn a language with a decent textbook. Otherwise, it's not that easy to remember what I have learned afterwards. Yeah, I agree. That's me as well. Winterzen, that's absolutely me. I like a nice book that I can follow. Stuff jail. Would you? Okay, yeah, it's interesting theory, especially if the language has complex grammatical structures. Yeah, I like explanations. I like that as well. If you disable the profile sharing on settings, menu, you disable the league tables. Okay, cool. So you can disable the league tables and stuff. Yeah, cool. That's really good. Value JPEG memory. You have a PO box. We can send books. Is that for me? I'm not sure. Mr. Wondrous. I I don't know. I don't know if that's for me or that's someone else because you've addressed me as something else. I don't know what. A reminder is welcome. Sometimes I forget. Yeah, chat usually comes up instantly on mobile. I forgot to like. Yeah, but yeah. Oh yeah. Well, thank you for liking afterwards, Alec. I appreciate it. It's as I say, it helps the algorithm and it helps to sort of see if these. Yeah, because sometimes when I'll be honest, sometimes I do look over my videos and I think how many people actually see and like these things and because I get such a nice flow of chat through the lives. I have a very positive feeling when I do them. So generally speaking, that's why I always say I come back, because I get a positive vibe from you all. Okay, Crystal, yeah, so the causes would say happy to Richard. We all need, myself included, a reminder occasionally. I've been here most Sundays since last year. I try to stick in a reminder if I see it lagging. Thank you, John. Uh, don't use boost in a language you already know, and don't do the same thing over and over. Yep, absolutely, JR. Nothing has helped me learn faster than having someone who speaks the language natively be willing to speak with me only in their language. I don't necessarily need the person to be native. So the whole idea of native for me isn't 100% necessary. It's somebody who's just able to use the language in a very fluid manner, in a very natural manner. And sometimes, I'll be honest, I've learned more from people who didn't grow up speaking the language necessarily. I know. Maybe I need to do a live on that, right? The whole controversy, native, non-native thing. And in Asia, particularly, I find it quite difficult to to hear about the kind of, I don't know, I mean, this whole native thing that's, yeah, it doesn't, it's a bit difficult for me to see that kind of thing, because I always feel sorry for people who actually have a lot of knowledge and experience with a language, particularly a language like English, like my first language, English. And there are people out there who have a lot of really good experience with English, didn't grow up in a family where they spoke English, and are well better qualified and better placed to teach the language than some people who did. And I find it quite sad sometimes when they're discriminated against. And sadly, that discrimination, due to perceptions in some parts of the world, can actually have a racial implication. So, and I find that quite difficult as well. So I've heard stories of people, because they've got a darker skin than me, not be considered like an authentic English speaker, which to me is absolutely wild. I mean, it's outrageously wild. I mean, outrageous wild. And yeah, I find that very. So this is where the word native for me is kind of, yeah, I'm not gonna say a trigger, but it's one of the things that I don't know how far native for me is the thing. But your point is not lost. I focused a bit on that because it made me think of it. But I agree with you. Working with people who speak the language well, absolutely, is a really good way of getting that repetition and constant feedback and all that stuff very, very well, very quickly. But yeah, if you would like me to talk about some of these other things as well, I'm very happy to. Just let me know. What would you say for you is the best resource to learn a language? There is no one best way to learn the language for me, Jordan. I've used many different books, many different things, many different methods, and it depends on where I am in my life, what the languages I'm trying to learn, and my opportunities to use it. So there isn't one way that I can give you to do that. I appreciate that might be a slightly frustrating answer, but unfortunately, it's the truth. The truth is often deeply frustrating. But yeah, it is the truth. Honestly, it's like there's not one thing I can mention. The only thing that's true with language learning is studying the language consistently, and knowing what you're doing it for, knowing your goals, moving forward in a way that you can feel the regularity of your studies is a really important thing, like doing it regularly, because it's not going to go in by osmosis. You're not going to just learn it randomly. So that for me definitely outweighs much of the other stuff. What is the best or the worst resources? Okay. Yeah, Richard, how is Ukrainian teach yourself going? Here's my book. I've not done my Ukrainian lesson for today. I've been busy. We've had visitors around this morning. So after this live, I will do some Ukrainian, and I will probably go back through the audio of the pronunciation guide again, and lessons 1 and 2, and maybe going to lesson 3 too. It's okay actually, because look, I mean, as many of you know, I've studied a lot of Slavic languages. In fact, Ukrainian was a language that I was never really going to study, and I have no doubt that Ukrainian, well, may well go back into my other languages after the study, after I finish the challenge. And I'm happy with that. I'm fine with that. I'm at peace with that. It's a natural thing that happens when you have other languages that you use more regularly. Then naturally you're going to, like, I hear Russian more often than I hear Ukrainian, and I use Russian more often than I use Ukrainian. I use Polish and Czech more than I would use Slovak or Ukrainian, for example. And so they tend to get they get drawn back into the languages that you use to help you learn them. So kind of that's just what happens. It's a natural thing for me. Similar thing happened with Slovene. It went back into Serbian, Croatian for me. I can still understand it fairly well, but I don't actively speak it really to any decent level. If I listen to it for a while, I could start repeating things and saying things again. It will bring back memories. But yeah, that just is a natural thing. Slovak was the same thing. It went back into my Czech and Polish. And I'm sure my Ukrainian will go back into my other Slavic languages too. Because I have stronger anchor languages in my Slavic languages, and that will just be there. That's it. But it's going well. You asked me how it's going. It's going well. It's only day. I mean, it's only what's it, day 2 today, so it's not far into it. Have you ever studied Latin? This is where I'd like to use a German word, jein. Yes and no. I've looked at Latin. I've not studied it with any intensity for the purpose of learning Latin. I have read text in Latin. I've read about Latin. But it's one of those languages where when you studied the languages that come from the root, it's quite weird the process of going backwards into it. But I'm going to say no, I haven't studied it, because I don't feel that I can say that I've really truly studied it with any seriousness. It is a language I actually quite like, though. In terms of like, if I were to learn a language like Latin, like an ancient language, I would pick Latin. It would be one of the languages I would study, and I would love to actually speak it. I'd love to go to one of those groups where they speak Latin as well. I think it's quite cool. I have been looking at Neo-Latin, which is interlingua, recently. I quite like the sound of that. I'm wondering if it's going to ruin my brain, though. Yabba has a dictation game called Scribe, and I recently discovered something helpful, surprisingly addictive. Oh, okay, Scribe. On Yabla. Okay, I'll have to have a look at it. I don't know it. I would like to hear your opinion on Glossica and amassment. Okay, that's possibly going to be another time now, unfortunately. I can see there are probably more questions here than I can get through. There's a lot of racism in Asia. As an Asian, I can confirm. JR, yeah, as somebody who, I mean, when you look at me, right, I don't look like I've got any Asian connection, but I do. And yeah, so I'm aware of those kinds of issues in some parts of Asia, absolutely. It's yeah, I mean, look, racism or sort of prejudice is unfortunately something that happens in many parts of the world. Yeah, thank you for saying that, JR. I appreciate it. There is also another form of racism, and that's colorism. Absolutely. Saw that in Africa. Wow. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a very racism and it's a very complex and layered issue, and it's spoken about a lot, and I follow a lot of people who talk on this issue, and I'm always interested to hear different voices. It helps me to understand and to educate myself on what's important to different communities and what people face. Look, when it comes to language learning, I very much learn languages to connect to people, and sometimes that's through languages, sometimes that's through even the languages I've been speaking for the longest time. But it's always, I always like to try and understand people and their positions and where they're coming from. I've just always found it interesting, whether it's about race, religion, whatever else. I just like to listen. The key thing as well, I mean, you know, I'm conscious of my packaging and so not centering myself is important to me as well, because it's not all necessarily my conversation to have, other people's experience. So I would definitely speak from the point of view of what you know, from my perspective, how I've seen things and how I've experienced things. But yeah, I'm very, very interested in hearing people's thoughts and opinions and what they're and hearing their experiences. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. My mistake with teachers, Czech and Dutch is trying to go through the book too fast. JR, really good point. We will talk about this, actually. That's a really good thing for another live. How fast we should go through a book is really, really good. It's a really good topic, particularly with me doing this. So if you're watching me doing this challenge, okay, I want to preface this as much as I possibly can. I am learning Ukrainian for a 50-day challenge on the basis of having studied how many Slavic languages? I've studied Macedonian, Bulgarian, Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, Montenegrin, those languages. Studied Slovene, I've studied Czech, I've studied Polish, I've studied Russian, I've studied Slovak. So I have studied 8 Slavic languages. This is Slavic language number 9 that I'm studying. It doesn't mean I speak all 8 of those Slavic languages perfectly or even at all, but I've studied 8 Slavic languages. I've been through looked at their grammar, looked at their core vocabulary. I've been through courses in all of those languages. And now I'm looking at Ukrainian, which is Slavic language number 9. So when I go through this book, I will go through this book fairly quickly. That's not what I necessarily advise you to do for every language or even for any language. I'm just doing that because for me, when I go through this book, a lot of this is me looking at differences between Ukrainian and other Slavic languages I've studied. I hope that helps to kind of set some context for this. But really it is that it's not like this for me is not like studying a brand new language in any way. This is very different to me studying even Irish, which is a Celtic language, which is a language that is related to another language I speak. But the Slavic languages, particularly, when you study that many of them, studying another one of them is not the same as studying a totally new language. It's just not. So I want to make sure I preface that. So yeah, very good question. I would like to use that for a live, actually. Yeah. Would you consider speaking with others who are fluent in the target language to be comprehensible input? Yes, absolutely. Even other learners, sometimes it can help. Can they understand if you were to learn, say, strongest language? Yeah, efficiently. Yeah, absolutely agree. Fantastic. Thank you all so much for joining me. And I'm sorry, I see that there are more comments on Instagram that I haven't got to since I switched over. I'm super duper sorry that I couldn't get to them all. It just, unfortunately, there are more questions and comments than I can get to in even an hour, and I've been an hour and nearly 20 minutes. And I get comments sometimes asking me to stop going on so long. And I'm sorry if you know, people say they find it too difficult to watch them and they're too long. But I will, just to let you know, I will most likely not be live next Sunday. So this Sunday is Easter for many people around the world. Next Sunday is Orthodox Easter. So my family and my friends here locally, it's when they celebrate Easter. And so I will be spending time with them. I will be prioritizing those relationships and for next week. And so I will be back the week after. If I can make it on a live or I can make a video or something, I will do my best to do that. Otherwise, I will be updating on my journey with Ukrainian, including today. I will make another video, and I will do that for the next 50 days. So you'll get that even whilst I'm away. If you want to, remember to like, remember to follow, subscribe, and also feel free to join on Patreon if you want to, if you would like me to sort of talk to you on an independent basis. I will also look to see if I can do some live events as well. I want to start getting out and about and doing some live events. So we'll see. I hope to see many of you as well, obviously in Poland at the Polyglot Gathering. I'm very excited about being able to go. I've booked my first flight in over 2 years, so I really hope to see people there. And yeah, thank you so much for keeping me company on this Sunday, and I look forward to hearing from you again soon and speaking to you again in at least 2 weeks' time. If I can make it, I will, but 2 weeks' time. Take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye bye.